Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the joint scrutiny meeting. We'll get straight on with the agenda. Chair's announcement, I have none except for, I'm going to turn to Suzanne to actually say something about the future Oxford partnership, the POP, as to why it was postponed, etc.
Yes, so there was committee an item this evening that you were due to hear around proposed changes to the future Oxford Partnership POP, as Chair has said. Unfortunately, due to the fact that that paper was not progressing to the POP meeting on the 3rd of October this week, we took the decision to defer the item because there was no paper as such that we could bring you to share with you. So it is deferred, and as soon as POP decide that they are going to consider that item, we will bring back any paper that we receive and discuss that with joint scrutiny to get your views, to allow the leader to go into that public meeting and represent the views of the councils.
Okay. So it was deferred sensibly and will be coming back in the future. So that's fine. Okay. Apologies for absence.
We have a full house.
Full house, great. Okay, minutes of the last meeting, which was chaired by Catherine.
Sorry about that. Are we missing somebody?
Just Alexandra.
Alexandra, I'm sorry.
Oh, Alexandra,
Oh,
as an apology.
Chair, I had a message from Alexandra and she's running late. But
Okay,
she's on her way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, continuing with the minutes of the last meeting, do I have any comments, edits? Comments? Are you happy for me to accept the minutes of the last meeting? Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? I see none. Urgent business, I have none. Public participation, we have none. Therefore, we move on to the work schedule. The work schedule, Suzanne's already mentioned about the future Oxford partnership, which may or may not come back to the next meeting or not. So we've got procurement strategy, then integrated care board, then Thames Water and the Environment Agency. Any comments on the future strategy? And of course, it's a standing, Catherine.
We were contacted, weren't we, by Paul Fielding regarding adding an item to joint scrutiny, and I'm desperately trying to think what that was.
And it's missed me.
I believe
All is online.
I believe we were waiting for just the timelines to add that.
Okay.
I think
What was the heading though?
Paul can probably tell us a bit about
Oh,
it.
Paul.
Yeah, this was as you'd be aware.
I'm glad you're here. Carry on.
Yeah, as you'll be aware, the councils agreed the joint air quality action plan
Yeah,
at the start of this year, and so it's to review the progress of that. So we're just trying to work out exactly when that will be, probably around May time. But yeah, we want to bring that here.
Okay, yeah, that's very good. We'll add that. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you, Paul. I just wanted to, could I raise as well that
Yes.
we may need to book an extra meeting in January to look at the leisure procurement strategy. So that's another one that might need updating on. We would entail an extra meeting there because our next one would be February, which is too late, I think. So, yeah.
Okay. So what we'll try and do is get a printed copy sent out to members. Yeah, of
Yeah.
what could be the new schedule. Yeah.
Is that
Julie?
the leisure strategy that will be part of the local plan?
I don't have any other details, I'm
Yeah,
afraid,
I
but
can answer that. It's
So it will be
no,
PDA?
it's about
Sounds
the
right.
future of leisure management, really. So how we manage our leisure
So it's
facilities going
GLO
forward.
contract
Yeah,
rather
the GLO
than-
contract. Yeah, so where we go.
Okay, yeah. It's just they both got the same name.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Judy. So on the work schedule and dates for joint scrutiny, that's done. So we now move on to item 8. The future delivery of household waste and street cleaning services. I will in a moment turn to Mark, who's going to introduce this particular thing, but I wonder if I could draw members' attention to if I can find it, the the proposal that we're talking about. I had it a moment ago, but I haven't got it now. Yeah, the recommendation,
It's on
Page 6.
page 6. Brilliant, thank you.
It's printed in.
Oh, right, sorry, it's because I printed my copy off. Yeah. No, still not. Yes, got it. Okay. Apologies. Right, the recommendations. We're not discussing the nitty-gritty of the street cleansing, whether we're going to recycle Pepsi Cola bottles or Coca-Cola bottles. We are just discussing at the moment the options available. So the recommendations are to review the options available for the future household street cleansing. The subject to this review agreed to progress option 1, and Mark will explain option 1 in a moment. And just to also say, there is of course confidential appendices. Suzanne will make sure that we do not wander into confidential territory. So it's a broad, high level look at this particular item. If at the end of the meeting we decide that we do need a 10-minute confidential session, then we will go into confidential and we will be able to discuss the appendices afterwards. So that's the broad brush of it. So Mark, if I could ask you to introduce this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So those who don't know me, Councillor Mark Coleman, I'm the Environmental Services and Waste portfolio holder in the Vale, and we have Councillor Sam Roy James, who's referenced on the south. Online we have Paul Feeling, you've already heard from him once, so he's the lead on this. Scott Williams, who has put this report together for us. So anything that Sam and I can't answer, which is probably most of it, we will feed to the right. So both South Oxfordshire and Vale of White Horse District Councils have a great record when it comes to recycling performance, and our waste service is considered good by residents. This, along with street cleansing, is currently provided through a long-standing contract with BIFA. However, the current contract is due to end in June 2026, and so it's important that both councils review the options for future delivery beyond that date. Whatever option is chosen, the process needs enough time for us to secure the necessary provision in order to guarantee continuity of service, which you'll be aware is a legal requirement for us to do waste collection. Officers have completed a review of the realistically available service provision options and have evaluated each option to arrive at an agreed recommendation, which is that we would procure a new contract, albeit of a different type to that previously secured, i.e. the one that's with BIFA now. Not only would we be providing vehicles and access to a vehicle depot, we want an arrangement that is flexible and has continual improvement built in. We also need the customer to simply see and communicate with a service rather than any false distinctions between contractor and council. And I'll have to go through the process of who do I report an issue to? Does it go through the contractor or to us as the council? Finally, and as indicated within the forthcoming waste resource and street cleansing strategy, we need a renewed focus on street cleansing to ensure it is a service that meets the realistic needs of the residents and communities, and so the specifics will also be improved prior to procurement. Sorry, that's specifications. Before the decision is made by Cabinet in October, we would welcome the Joint Scrutiny Committee reviewing the information provided and asking any relevant questions on the content. As was confirmed when the agenda pack went out, there are 4 confidential appendices included within the report. So if members wish to discuss any of those informations presented, then the meeting will need to go into confidential session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sam, do you wish to?
Yes. Yeah, maybe if we take some questions and then we'll summarise.
It was really whether you wanted to just introduce or not. You're fine. Okay, that's all right. I'll turn to Paul and whether you wanted to make any comment, please.
Yeah, there's nothing to add at this stage, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so we're opening up for questions. Ed, please.
Sorry, Lee already alluded to it, but page 8, part 5, there's a street cleaning strategy for the district. It says click here, but it doesn't actually open. So I just wonder where we could see that report. So I did have a look around for it, but I didn't know quite where.
Yeah, so I thought it had been circulated. It's only just, Paul will answer, it's only just gone through cabinet. So Paul, is that link not supposed to be live now?
Yeah, apologies. Obviously, there's a timing issue in Vale. The strategy that the paper refers to, the waste resources street cleansing strategy, that was agreed literally last Friday by Vale and hasn't yet formally been decided by South. Will be for a couple of weeks. So in due course, that will be a link. We obviously can circulate the paper now, but apologies that it wasn't sort of live within this paper. But as I say, there was a bit of a timing issue.
Sorry about that.
I think there's been a few instances where we've had links put into documents now that just don't work. Not just this isn't the first time. I think it's probably better to just append it for what it is. It's not a huge number of pages.
I think that's something we'll take on board for future, that we'll just say this will be linked and then put it as an appendix. So you say, you might recall that this, I believe the strategy did come to you, and it was the one that had that table with all the acronyms that none of us understood. So if you recall that paper, that's what we're referring to.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Right. Yes.
Yes, looking through the papers, we may have to go into confidential session on this, but it did seem to me that option 3 looked quite a viable option. And I wondered why it was rejected.
Well, we can. It is part of the public document, so we can, at a high level thing, discuss it. So yes, we can discuss all of the options. So right, yes, Mark.
I mean, to some degree, it's timing, and it's whether that was a feasible option to us at the time that our contract comes towards an end. So again, I'm not sure whether I can talk about other authorities that we've spoken to. So perhaps Paul, just to keep me honest, I'd rather not mention particular. We have spoken to the local authorities, you would expect.
Paul, stay live with your camera. It's fine. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, as Councillor Coleman said, we've investigated a number of existing LATCOs, some of which are used by local authorities locally. As is the information that's in the confidential papers, we didn't find that any of them were at the position that we felt it was suitable for the councils to join at that time. Also, that we didn't have a fully costed and detailed proposal on the table in front of us with which we could make a decision to recommend that. So that is why option 3 in summary isn't proposed. But I've also got Scott Williams, who's the environmental services manager, on the call, so he was doing a lot of the detailed work as well. So if there's any other questions on specifically about joining a LATCO, then he can answer that. Do you want to come in, Scott?
Yeah,
I think, Scott, sorry, I'm going to say if we're getting into the detail of that, then that's more appropriate for a confidential session. If we're going to go there, if it's necessary at the end of the thing. So we won't at the moment hear from Scott. So I'm going to turn to Councillor Rawlings-Lee. Please,
just a small point, if I may. Looking at all the confidential papers and the details which it goes into about productivity, which I don't need to go into in detail, other than to say it really was focused, understandably, on the status quo and where we are now. And just one of the points that we discussed last time was the option of going to a 3-week cycle. And we know there's an impediment from the government for one type of waste there that is would presently get in our way if we wanted to do that. But I think we did discuss writing to government and pressing the case that restriction was unreasonable.
So, you know, I kind of try to allude to it in my intro. By going out to tender for a new contract, we would not be tendering for the same contracts as we currently have. It would be different, you know, very different, and the way it's managed would be different.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, we are, as you know, we're going through the process of trying to get a waste depot. So we will own the waste depot. We're also, as vehicles become to the end of their life, we're buying them, and lease them back. All that's done to make the contract more attractive to other companies. To a wide selection of companies. I'm not excluding anybody. So I wouldn't view the going to a contracted option as being more of the same. It will be a very different contract.
And that was really all I was verifying,
Yes.
that was indeed the case.
It is.
And the frequencies will be actively considered and pressed for.
Exactly. So,
what we do.
the detail of how it is delivered in the contract, that still needs to be decided. And obviously, as you've alluded to, you know, we need to abide by legislation still. So, yeah.
Okay, Catherine?
I have lots of questions which I think are probably for a confidential session, but a couple, if I may. The first one is page 7, paragraph 7. It talks about OCC having overall responsibility, and it does use the word that it's been our preference.
Yeah.
And I wondered if is it a hypothetical possibility that we could just say it's no longer our preference and OCC have to deal with it?
I'll ask Paul to answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have had conversations with OCC over some time. As you know, at the moment, both councils not only collect the dry mix recycling stream, but also have responsibility for how it's managed, and how we dispose of it or get it reprocessed. It is in many other parts of the country that responsibility rests with the Waste Disposal Authority, which is normally the county. But in Oxfordshire, for some time, the city and all of the districts have had the responsibility for that. Obviously, if that was to change, that would be quite a significant change, and it would involve having agreement with the county. The statement that is in paragraph 7, as you've pointed out, is a statement that we've had from the county. I don't believe that at this time that there is a desire for that to swap, but that is something that maybe if there wants to be further discussion, we might have that in the confidential session.
I mean, I would also, because it is probably stating the obvious, I would imagine were we to do that, there would also be a requirement to transfer funding, budgeting, because clearly we've got the budget for that extra.
Catherine, carry on,
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, fine.
and then I'll come to Lee.
So again, partly this is going to end up in a confidential, but I think it's worth asking probably. So paragraph 14, you talk about the in-house option. And I'm quoting, officers do not believe that the outline business case is strong. Now, in the public papers that we've got, there's very little outline business case. But I wonder, is that business case, is that what's set out in the 2022 cabinet paper where there is a lot more detail?
I'll go to Paul because I'm not familiar. I don't know
Yeah.
the 22 paper well enough.
Paragraph 14 refers to a commercial waste collection service. So at the moment, we neither council run a commercial waste collection service,
Right, okay.
and we're not proposing through this to change that. So that would be a significant change, which we're not proposing in this paper. We've done some very high level work, and it would need a full business case to do that. But we don't believe that the case is there for that at the moment.
And that would be applicable for any of the options.
Right, okay, yeah, sorry, thank you. I hadn't appreciated the nuance of that being the commercial waste collection service. All right, thank you, Paul.
Catherine? Fine. Can I just ask one, and then I'll come to Lee, and then it's Ed afterwards. I know this is presumptive, depending on what we're going to do on the vote, but if this goes through with option 1, and that's not a given at the moment because we've still got to debate and decide, etc. What is the timeline for actually then discussing the nuances and what's going to go in the contract, etc. So just a broad timeline going forward.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to go to Paul on that. I've never gone through a
Rough
contract like this, so I couldn't tell you.
It just gives us a picture of where we've got to land and what the stages are before we land.
Yeah, so you're asking what are the touch points for the likes of the scrutiny committee to look at a decision about what the spec looks like? Is that
Just the whole, yes, yes,
So,
just the whole contract, yes.
from what I understand, and Paul can correct me if I'm wrong, the contract ends in 2026. 2026?
Yeah.
2026. Everything can be done in that time frame. So all the contract can be drawn up and everything can be looked into for all 4 options within that period of time.
Paul, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to say that the detailed specification that we would go out to the market with is something operational. It's not something that we would normally come back to members with ahead of a procurement process. We would come back to members to approve the procurement process, and at that point we would be able to outline the details of what that procurement had delivered for us. In terms of details of future services, that is where the strategy comes together with this work. And as has been touched about, we want something that's much more flexible so that we would be able to deliver those services as we wish to, and as we wish to develop them as we're going along. So we're not bringing forward planning to bring forward a specification, but things like, and the example has already been raised, if we were to decide to move to 3 weekly, we want to make sure that whichever of these options is chosen has the flexibility for the council to be able to do that in a meaningful way.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lee, and then Ed.
I was going to make the point briefly that there's a table of market shares on page 9, and I think during the course of the report, we're told, I wasn't previously aware that FCC had taken over Obeza, so they've now got an 18% share. So Veolia 30%, Biffa 22%, FCC 18%, Serco 13%, and Suez 7%, and then 5 or less. The market's already tolerably concentrated, and that's what comes out through the report, and that's just where we are.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah. So in terms of the way that the way the report's written, it is very weighted in favour of option 1.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether, because option 2 and 3 and 4 all look quite similar in many ways, because it's insourcing, or it's a LATCO, or it's a established a LATCO with other authorities, but they're kind of almost the same thing, aren't they? So
yeah.
So I just wonder, and also there's some things which you rightly pointed out about vehicle procurement and depots that we're bringing in house anyway, which I think is great, because it does make the landscape very clear for the people who are bidding for the contracts. I'm just wondering, because there are some advantages with option 1, and there's some disadvantages with the other options, namely the employing of staff and the whole infrastructure that you need around that for the council to manage and so forth. But in terms of, and it did sort of say in the report about it, it did name Labour as the kind of people who would like to bring it more in house. So it's a bit of a left wing, right wing balance there about.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a good. You make a good point, and that's why I and Sam do not write this. This is done by the officers who are, apolitical. So they will be looking at it in terms of the operational benefits. So I do agree with you that the sort of last 3 options are all kind of very similar. But what I would say is it probably reflects that the officers try to look as broadly as they can. Yes. So they're looking at subsets of what might be one option, in-house, or in-house working with someone else, or in-house working with more than one other person. So, and I think the point that we need to be thinking of is, are there any options for for delivery of this operational task that they haven't considered?
I was just wondering whether there was enough rigor there to allow us to sort of just really question those motivations about, council officers' point of view, because they're looking at costs and spreadsheets and so forth.
Yeah.
But there's some people behind this as well, aren't there? And I know the pension issue is a potential stumbling block.
Yeah, I mean, those add risks, don't they?
Yeah,
They're things that, it can be done, but it adds risk. So I think.
So it's almost like we're prepared to take the kind of infrastructure on board, depots and vehicles, but not the people.
Well, I'll leave Martin to.
Yeah, so I would read it that we're not willing to take the people on board. What I do read it is there is an element of risk in doing that. And I think possibly we're now edging into maybe the confidential bit that we would.
Sorry, yes, that's true.
Probably
Okay, let's just pause on that. Joe?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just to say, if there are, this I think is going to be venturing into confidential territory now, so I might hold my peace.
If you think it is, then don't.
Well, I think it is.
If you think it is, then stop there, and we'll head towards
I
confidential.
would be more.
In a moment.
Yes.
The way this conversation's going.
Right. So go Peter first, then Judy. Peter.
I just wondered why there wasn't another option, which is to extend the existing contract further.
Well, because it was already extended by 7 years, and then it's had another extension. We can't extend again.
Okay.
And also, I would think that we wouldn't want to extend the existing contract because there are some fundamentals that we wouldn't want to change and improve and get better. So therefore, it is an opportune time to Judy and then Catherine.
My question is more about, because of the extension of the contract, we have had to go down to start the route of procuring our own vehicles. And look into, because of other consequences, we've had to look into providing our own waste depot. Again, neither are finalised, but I'm wondering how this fits in with the things we already own by the time we get to this point and the way we're already operating.
Okay, I'm not sure I would agree that we're buying those things because of the contract extension. They're separate things.
I'll put it as a statement then. We are
So
proceeding to buy our own vehicles.
Yes.
And at the moment proceeding to look at the provision of a waste depot.
Yes.
How does that fit in with the options we have presented? Because they aren't really in this paper as to how that links in with these. I know it keeps saying it will be very positive if we have these things to the people who we're talking to, but I kind of wanted a bit more detail about how and why. One of the operators might want to do all electric vehicles. We may not have that already set up. So that kind of it may not be a smooth transition. But how is that going to fit into the procurement in 26?
Okay, I'm not really sure that I understand the question, if I'm honest. So let's go back to the electric vehicles. So the depot will be procured, and we're future proofing that so that we've got capacity for non-diesel vehicles. But we won't be delivering on day one of that new depot sufficient capacity to have 100. We've got nearly 100 vehicles. They won't all be electric. With as we know, we've just unfortunately had to buy 8 diesel.
Yeah.
And we've only got 1 electric. So it's not the kind of come June 26 we're moving to the new depot and all the vehicles going to change out. What I would say is that the having those the advice that we've been given is that having a depot and having, I'm going to say, some of the vehicles, we will have bought some of them, but not all of them. And I can probably get the board to just explain what happens to the ones that we haven't replaced because they still belong to BIFA. By having those, it makes this a more attractive contract to more deliverers.
I suppose I was worried about, and I think we did. I'm still not 100% sure whether we did go down the leasing avenue rather than the procurement. I think how are the stock that we're going to actually have when we go into this are some going to just have to be written off and we lose money, or are they going to be valuable as part of any new operation?
So we've got another couple of years of buying the vehicles that we need to replace, and then Paul can explain better than I can, but I asked the same question. There is written into the contract a mechanism for us to take those vehicles over from BIFA. The remainder, the ones that we're not replacing at the moment. So by this, we will have.
I suppose my question really is: are we going to be left with stock that will not be useful for the new procurement contract?
Let's turn to Paul on that.
Yeah.
That's concise as I can get it.
I'm quite happy to give the committee some information, but not in an open session.
Right,
so
fine,
that needs to be
okay.
a confidential session.
Okay, Paul, we'll leave that there. I would, yeah. I'll tell you where I'm at, committee, on this. I am almost tempted to go into confidential, then come out of confidential after we've had a discussion. So therefore, are there any questions in the public domain that we want to discuss or say before we go into confidential? What we'll do, we'll go into confidential so you can ask all of these things, and then we will come out to actually vote on the resolution, whichever way we wish to. So I'm going to give Catherine, then Joe. That's Catherine.
I have a pretty nice, gentle question. Paragraph 12, it says about a report was considered by the cabinets in 2022, and part of the negotiation of the interim contract was in order for the implications of the Environment Act to be understood, to fully understood. Are those implications now fully understood? Do we have everything clear from central government, or are there still moving parts that we still don't know how they're going to be built into anything?
So I'll try and answer the question, then Paul can correct me if I've got it wrong. So the answer is under simpler recycling. We do understand what we've got to do, and this was the DEFRA piece of the enhanced producer responsibility, the deposit scheme. And we do have dates of when those things are coming in. The most significant bits really are the fact that we hopefully will not be having to recycle plastic bottles, etc., and cans, because that will go under the deposit scheme. But we will have to recycle soft plastics, foils. I mean, we've got indicative dates from the last government when those were going to be coming in, and we will include that obviously in the contract. What we don't know is whether this government might change those dates. So there is still, I believe, a level of uncertainty, but we can only really plan on what the last legislation said. Is that reasonable, Paul?
Yeah, I would say we've got more certainty now than we had approximately a year ago. Obviously, as Councillor Coleman has said, the change in government could always bring about some change, but I think the best way to put it is it's as firm and set as it realistically is going to be. So yeah, I don't think that the legislation itself is a reason now to not progress with making changes.
I think the government's got other things that it might deem to be more important to be tinkering with than that.
Right, thanks. Joe, Councillor Rock.
I think I'm on safe territory here, possibly veering, but I'm drawing this
Well,
directly.
with your legal training, you should know.
I know. Directly from the report.
You should know where the envelope is, so you can push it.
Pushing it. Paragraph 30. It says the financial implications. The total cost of delivering the service under a new contract is not yet known and will not be known until the procurement exercise has been completed. But then the report goes on in paragraph 31 to say that option 1 is deemed to be the best value option. I'm not sure how we get from point A, which is we don't know what the cost of a new procurement will be, to point B, which is option 1 is the best value option. And I don't think that conclusion can necessarily be drawn from the report that we have from the specialists who we've commissioned to do the report. So I guess what I'm asking is, well, it's a question and it's a statement, I suppose, of concern, which is I think we've gone from actually a position of not knowing to quite a strong conclusion, and I'm not sure that the evidence is there to support the conclusion not least because we haven't got information about both the costs and benefits of potential insourcing. And we're talking, for example, about the cost of tupiing the staff. But what hasn't been mentioned in our report is the beneficial impact of not having an outsourced provider that pays profits and dividends to its shareholders. And that's not mentioned in our report.
I think we might be very close to the edge of.
We are.
Yeah.
So I
think we need to go.
No, I think generally it's an excellent question.
It's from the-
providing you deal with generally.
Yeah, which I shall, yeah. So I think, and again, I'll hand over to Paul, but I think what we're saying is, because we have a competitive market, although we don't know how much contractor A will charge compared to contractor B, we know that there are a number of contractors who are likely to bid for the contract, and therefore we believe that we've got a fairly good idea how much it's going to come in at.
I would agree. The only question that I then would have is, if this is such a juicy contract that a number of contractors are keen to fight it out over, why aren't we in there as well? Why aren't we swinging? Why aren't we, facing up to the bar and having a go
That's
ourselves?
only in-house option.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask Paul to address that, but I think that might be where we then need to go into
Yeah.
confidential.
I think it's page 82, really.
Well, if Paul says confidential, then I will head into confidential pretty rapidly, I think. Paul? No, you're gonna.
Yeah, I
Fine,
think that's
decline
best
to
to
answer, that's fine. That's your best. I think.
I'm sorry, but
No, don't apologise. There are lines, so there's not a problem. So, committee, I'm going to propose that we actually go into confidential.
Seconded.
So I've got to do it properly
To read it out.
Right, okay. Right, to consider whether to exclude members of the public press from the meeting, the following items of business under section 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended on the grounds that it is likely that there will be a disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of schedule 12A, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So that will be the motion we are voting on. And Lee has seconded, Councillor Rawlings has seconded. Any debate?
Sorry, Chair, just to ask that Paul has asked if there's a separate Teams channel for a confidential meeting, or if we're staying on the same Teams meeting.
I think Susie can confirm that she can do something from her end to
Okay,
pause it on YouTube, so.
let's go to Susie after we've had the vote in a moment. So,
Yeah.
so everyone is content with that. All those in favour? Okay, so for members of the public that are watching, it's just to say that we are going into confidential session now, because councillors wish to actually ask a few pertinent questions. We will, after a short time, come out of confidential session, and then there will be a further public session right at the end, in which we will vote on the proposal. So no vote will be taken in private session. Okay. So, Susie, if you
Thank you, Susan.
All right, thank you. We are now back in public session for the joint scrutiny committee meeting. You will have noticed that we disappeared into private, and the reason why we had a full and thorough in-depth discussion of this matter that we had to have in confidential session. So we're now going to come up with a proposal which is on the papers that Joint Scrutiny Committee reviews the Cabinet report, notes the confidential appendices and asks questions. A, reviews the options available for the future household waste and street cleansing provision, service provision for June 2028, as set out in this report.
June
B,
26.
sorry,
June 26.
June 26, sorry, yes, I'm rushing, sorry, I'll slow down. B, subject to this review, agrees to progress option 1 and delegate to the head of housing and environment in consultation with the responsible cabinet members to undertake a joint procurement exercise between South Oxfordshire District Council and the Vale of the White Horse Council, District Council, to let a new joint contract for household waste collection and street cleansing services from 29th of June 2026. That is the proposal, but we wish to add as the committee that Cabinet should keep all of the other options open, because this procurement exercise will take some time. There may well be pitfalls along the way, and you keep them open as contingencies. And that round about October, in agreement with the joint chairs of the scrutiny committee, that's Catherine and myself, we agree a date to scrutinise the progress that is being made on this contract negotiation. I so propose. Do I have a seconder for that? Judy? Any debate, please? Or comments? Catherine?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to support your proposal. I simply think our job is to help cabinet members make the best decision in the interests of our residents. And I just don't think that we've had enough information on the other options to be able to advise cabinet to take option 1. And so I can't support that.
I'm happy to second it.
Judy is seconded. So
Oh, sorry, big bum. Already done.
any other comments, debate? No?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
I think you know my position. I said earlier on that I didn't feel we had enough information and that some of the other options had been ruled out. I thought without having been given a fair crack of the whip, as we say in Australia. So I don't feel I can support this recommendation because I don't believe all the options have been given a fair hearing, and I don't believe we've been given sufficient information to make a judgment on its merits. So thank you.
Chair, can you rerun through? Because I got a little bit lost on the.
It's the wording as is, but with the addition that cabinet is also to be mindful that they keep the other options open, bearing in mind there may well be during the negotiation process problems. So therefore they're keeping them open as a contingency. And the second bit was the date for a revisit to this.
Rather than open, is it possible to put further exploration with the view of contingency, making them into contingency options or something along those lines? Because just open means we haven't completely shot them down, but we still won't have the information we needed. So further exploration, bearing in mind that we've got concerns about officers not being able to have the capacity for it. But what we did pick up was that there is an element of looking at that anyway when they're evaluating.
So further exploration of the
I would personally be happier if there was an element of further exploration rather than just keeping open.
Okay.
That
I have to
Julie,
think
would you
about it,
accept
but
that?
thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
Appreciate
Yes,
it.
we'll accept that extra wording. So keep them open, but with
And
further
engage
explanation,
in further exploration
of
the
the other option.
specifically in terms of costs
Okay.
and risks in comparison to the tenders as they come in,
Fine.
something along those
Okay.
lines.
Julie and I accept that wording, so yes. So we're now discussing the wording.
I just wonder whether we could discount any of the options to make it easier for the.
No, we've got a proposal now, so we're not going to go through the variant routes.
Okay.
next.
So Ed,
Okay,
so we're making statements on this proposal.
so bearing in mind the wording, Chair, I think progress option one is, I can't really support that for the reasons that Catherine and Joe outlined.
Okay. Right. So we're going to go for a vote on this. And I will say in conclusion, thank you very much, members, for this thorough and frank debate on it, discussing lots and lots of variations and options. But you know, Julie and I, that's our proposal. So all those in favour of that proposal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7. All those against. 1,
Oh, go on.
2, 3. 3 against. 3 against. And any abstentions?
I was going to, but I voted.
That's fine. No. I prefer fours and against rather than abstentions. So the motion is carried by 7 votes to 3.
Chair, can I just, it's the first time I've been in a scrutiny meeting where we haven't all agreed. Can I just clarify, are we named or is it just numbers in terms of for and against? I'm happy to have my recorded as
I think we've got the recording that's going to be on the website, so we know what the names are anyway. And it's in the spirit of these committees that we have honest views, and that's how we get the best decisions made. So excuse my cold as well. Get the best decisions made by having honest views and respecting everybody's views, which we have. We have done. So I would just like to sort of say in conclusion, thank you to Paul and Scott. Sorry, it's all right. I think I'm going to get my eyes tested out. Thank you, Paul and Scott online for your considerable help. Thank you, Paul, for your considerable help, and thank you to Mark and Sam for following this through. You've obviously done a very thorough job and even been on the training for BIFA, so you're our backup bin then.
By the way, I didn't get paid.
But the answer is
No, they didn't take it up.
Well,
Yeah,
still
apologies
part of
for
the
the
meeting,
carry-on.
yes. But were you appointed though? Were you appointed?
No, they said I was too slow. Sam as well. Sam did the same thing.
What?
I wasn't too slow.
I said the same thing. I meant he went out on the round as well.
Right, okay,
Are we
well,
still live or are we not live?
thank you. We are still live, right. We are going to stop the meeting now and thank you very much for your cooperation and being here. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Susie.